Good evening and welcome. Tonight we're going to be flipping through and reading from this book about Georgia. And this is Georgia, the country, Sakartvelo, not Georgia, the U.S. state. This is the country of Georgia. Now, I've actually already flipped through this book and looked at all the pictures. I'll leave the link up in the corner there. But tonight we're going to look through and read all the little boxes. So let's just dive right in. Georgia. Let's see. Let's find some boxes. Here's one. The Georgian Military Highway. The 128-mile Georgian Military Highway cuts north through the Great Caucasus Range to connect Georgia with Russia and beyond. Beginning in Tbilisi, this road crosses the precipitous mountains to reach Vladikavkaz in southern Russia. The route that began as a track used by invaders since the 1st century BCE became part of the Silk Road. It provided an important trade link between Europe and Asia. For many centuries it was dangerous, and in winter it was often impassable. It rises to an impressive height of 7,983 feet at the Krestovi Pass, which is actually the lowest and easiest route over the Caucasus. The route offers the traveler fantastic views of the surrounding mountains and river valleys. Today's Georgian Military Highway was originally built by the Russians to improve communications with their new subject territory. It was completed in 1817 by the Russian regional commander, General Alexei Yermolov, on the orders of Tsar Alexander I. The name of the route originates from this time, when the Russians used the road to move troops to aid their conquest of Transcaucasia. Here's a box about Svaneti. Upper and Lower Svaneti have the most inaccessible and difficult terrains in Georgia. Upper Svaneti is wholly mountainous, with a small population of about 15,000. Lower Svaneti has a population of 12,000. Mestia, the chief town of Upper Svaneti, was not accessible by motor vehicles until 1935, when the road was widened with dynamite. Situated 7,220 feet above sea level in the region of Upper Svaneti, Ushguli is the highest continuously inhabited village in Europe. Like many other centers in Svaneti, the village is striking because of the more than 20 medieval watchtowers that dot its landscape. The surrounding mountain scenery is superb, with good views of the nearby peaks of Ushba and Shikara. I think there's a box later about the watchtowers, if I remember correctly. Let's see. Pheasants, or Phaeacius colchicus. Pheasants are indigenous throughout the Caucasus and southeastern Europe. They are larger than quail or partridge, and most are long-tailed birds of the open woodlands and fields, although some prefer grain fields near brushy cover. All pheasants have hoarse calls and a variety of other call notes. The males of most pheasant species are strikingly colored, while the females are more inconspicuous. Courting males sometimes fight to the death in the presence of hens. Many pheasants are kept in private collections and are also raised for sport in some game reserves. Some species have been brought to the verge of extinction by hunting. Legend has it that Jason and the Argonauts first introduced pheasants to Greece, and from there to the rest of Europe, when they returned home from their arduous adventures. It is thought that the name pheasant derives from the river Phasis, now called the Rioni River, down which the Argonauts traveled when they escaped from Colchis with the Golden Fleece. Very interesting. Let's read about it. The Argonauts' quest for the Golden Fleece. The earliest version of this legend was told by Apollonius Rhodius in his epic poem Argonautica, composed in the 3rd century BCE. Greek geographer Strabo also tells of the Golden Fleece in his literary work Geography, or in Greek, Geographica, where my channel name comes from. Many details in the Argonautica have since been supported by archaeological evidence, suggesting that the Argonauts' journey may be more than just a legend. According to the story, a Greek prince named Jason set out with a band of 50 men in a ship called the Argo to find the fabled Golden Fleece. His uncle Peleus had usurped the throne belonging to his father, and Jason could only regain his rightful crown by proving his bravery. In the search for the Golden Fleece, the Argonauts encountered many dangers during a long and eventful journey that finally took them to Colchis. There, Aeetes, the Colchian king, refused to give up the Golden Fleece unless Jason went through several trials. First, he had to tame the king's fire-snorting bulls and yoke them to a plow, which Jason achieved through strength and cunning. Next, he had to plow a field and plant a helmet full of dragon's teeth, each of which sprang up into armed warriors, whom he then had to defeat. Aeetes' daughter Medea, a sorceress who had fallen in love with Jason, stepped in to help. She advised him to throw a stone among the warriors, causing confusion so that they turned in anger upon one another and fought to the death, leaving Jason victorious. Aeetes, however, still refused to part with the Golden Fleece, which was being guarded by an ever-watchful dragon. Once again, Medea went to Jason's aid. She guided him to the fleece and cast a spell on the dragon, causing it to fall asleep. This allowed Jason to escape in the Argo with both the Golden Fleece and Medea. I've read the whole story on my channel before. If I remember, I'll link it up there too. It's a fun story. Joseph Stalin. Not a fun story. Perhaps the most famous and notorious Georgian of modern times, Stalin was born in Gori, Inner Kartli. Originally Christian Joseph Vissarionovich Chugashvili. He adopted the name Stalin, meaning man of steel, in Russian, when he entered revolutionary politics. Or maybe it's just easier to say than Vissarionovich Chugashvili. Stalin's family was poor and his father was a drunkard. Despite great hardship, his mother succeeded in sending Stalin to an Orthodox seminary in Tbilisi, where he trained for the priesthood. He was expelled in 1899. It is suspected that this was because he was propagating Marxism. Although he was anti-Tsarist, Stalin was never a nationalist. He did not believe that Georgia's salvation lay in independence, but rather in becoming part of a larger political structure. He became active in Georgia's revolutionary underground. He was arrested and imprisoned many times and exiled to Siberia twice by the Tsarist authorities. He became friends with Lenin and was at the forefront of the 1917 Bolshevik Revolution. When Lenin died in 1924, Stalin had so much power that he was able to isolate and disgrace his political rivals. In 1928, he exiled his main political rival, Leon Trotsky, and gained absolute control of the Communist Party. Stalin was a cruel, ruthless, and dictatorial ruler who was responsible for the imprisonment or death of many millions of people in the Soviet Union through forced collectivization and political purges in the 1930s. It is estimated that as many as 20 million Soviet citizens died as a result of his policies. Nevertheless, he gained a reputation as a great war leader, leading the Soviet Union to victory over the Germans in World War II. He died on March 5th, 1953, under mysterious circumstances, probably from a brain hemorrhage. I challenge you to find a better ASMR clip about Joseph Stalin. That's probably about as tingly as you're going to get. Let's read about the Georgian flag. The medieval flag of Georgia was adopted by the new government on January 14th, 2004, when Mikhail Saakashvili won the presidential election. I didn't realize it was so new. Well, it's the medieval flag. It has a single red cross on a white background in the center and 4 smaller crosses in the white quarters. The flag symbolizes Jesus Christ and the 4 evangelists, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. The white background is a sign of innocence, chastity, purity, and wisdom. The red color of the cross represents courage, bravery, justice, and love. It's rare to find red in a flag that represents love and not like bloodshed or something. Speaking of underarms, before 1991, Georgia's security was provided by the Soviet Army, in which many Georgians served as conscripts. Following independence, 2 distinct military groups emerged in Georgia. The National Guard was formed to support the government, while a group called the Mkedrioni, led by Jaba Yoseliani, was formed to fight against the secessionist Abkhazians. However, the Mkedrioni, numbering 7,000 men, soon developed into an independent force that was answerable only to their leader. As a newcomer to the political scene, Shevardnadze was unable to control these groups when he first came to power in 1992. In 1995, the Mkedrioni was implicated in an attempt to assassinate Shevardnadze. Since then, it has lost much of its power and has, to some extent, been kept in check by the increasing stability of Shevardnadze's government. Today, it still carries out illegal activities, but no longer operates as a government-sanctioned military force. A regular Georgian army has developed only gradually and faces many difficulties. Georgia had a total of 38,859 people in its armed forces in 2005, which were made up of the National Guard, the Navy, and Air Force. Military service is compulsory for 2 years for males above 18 years of age. There are up to 250,000 reservists, all of whom have completed national conscription. Defense spending was 0.59% of the nation's gross domestic product. You can tell this is kind of an older book, right? Moving on, let's read about the economy. Is there any boxes? It looks like there is. Trading. Sure, why not? Let's read this box about trading. Georgia trades mainly with other former Soviet republics. Its main exports of grapes and other fruits, vegetables, wheat, barley, wine, brandy, vodka, livestock, light industry, machinery and metalworking equipment, chemicals, metallurgical products, and building materials go to, and this is probably different because this book came out like 15 years ago, but let's see. They go to Russia at 17.8%, Turkey 14.1%, Azerbaijan 9.6%, Turkmenistan 8.7%, Bulgaria at 4.9%, Armenia 4.6%, Ukraine at 4.4%, and others at 35.9%. Georgia's main imports of mineral fuels, food products, beverages, transportation equipment, chemicals, electrical machinery, and equipment come from Russia at 15.4%, Turkey at 11.4%, Azerbaijan at 9.4%, Ukraine at 8.8%, Germany at 8.3%, the United States at 5.9%, Turkmenistan 3.8%, and everyone else at 37%. Oil, the great geoeconomic game. Georgia has little oil itself, but it has transportation and storage facilities that are used to move oil from neighboring Azerbaijan. Azerbaijan extracts oil from the Caspian Sea basin, one of the richest sources of oil in the Caspian Sea basin today. Many American and British oil companies have invested in the oil fields of the Caspian Sea basin. Georgia recently signed an agreement to expand a pipeline that links Azerbaijan with the Black Sea port of Batumi, which has one oil refinery. From Batumi, the oil is transported by sea to Western markets. Plans are afoot to extend the pipeline farther east to carry oil from Turkmenistan and Kazakhstan, both of which are oil-producing countries. The link may eventually be extended westward to Turkey, providing quick access to the Mediterranean Sea, and then to Europe and the rest of the world. Such an arrangement would provide Georgia with a ready supply of petroleum, as well as a vital and profitable interest in the region's most important economic asset. However, Georgia's plans to provide a link between Europe and the oil-producing countries of Central Asia conflict directly with Russia's interests. The Russians have their own pipelines running from Azerbaijan and Kazakhstan through southern Russia to the Black Sea port of Novorossiysk. As a major force in the region, the Russians expect to have a say in the major economic assets of former Soviet republics. They also resent Western interference. A compromise was reached in 1995. As a result, two pipelines will carry oil westward, one through southern Russia and the other through Georgia. Construction of the Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan, or BTC, oil pipeline began in September 2002, one of the biggest engineering projects of the decade since the fall of the Soviet Union. The pipeline transports crude petroleum 1,090 miles from the Caspian Sea to the Mediterranean Sea. It passes through Baku in Azerbaijan and Tbilisi in Georgia to reach Ceyhan in Turkey. The BTC pipeline began operations in May 2006. Let's see what else we've got. Exiles in Central Asia. Religion and ethnicity have created considerable problems in Georgia. In 1944, Stalin had 144,000 Muslim Georgians from the southwest province of Mashkedi transported forcibly to Uzbekistan in Central Asia, a fate suffered by many ethnic groups throughout the Soviet Union in the 1930s and 1940s. Although successive Soviet regimes have acknowledged that these people did not commit any crimes, they have not been allowed to return to their homelands. There are about 300,000 Turkish Mashketians living in the Commonwealth of Independent States, of which 80,000 are in Azerbaijan. The rest are temporarily living in Russia, Uzbekistan, and Kazakhstan. As recently as 2004, which again shows you how old this book is, only 50,000 of Turkish Mashketians were seeking to return to their historic residences. Today, Mashkedi is populated by Christian Georgians and Armenians from other parts of the country. The Georgian government has so far opposed the return of the exiled Mashketian Muslims, fearful that an increase in the Muslim population will create further ethnic and religious tension in an already fragile region. It's complicated. Thanks to the Soviet Union, of course. Centenarians. Hopefully this is a little happier. Georgians, like other Caucasian people, are famous for their longevity. It is a medical phenomenon that has attracted wide interest and for which experts can offer no concrete explanation. The statistics tell a story. The Republic claims 51 centenarians for every 100,000 inhabitants. The centenarians do not just live a long time, they usually live full lives, working, relaxing, and enjoying themselves as young people do. Longevity is particularly prevalent in Abkhazia, which has a famous choir, Narta, made up wholly of men 70 to 130 years old. My goodness. Narta is an amazing sight and performs throughout Georgia, entertaining locals and visitors alike. Surprisingly, the average life expectancy for men in Georgia is 73 years and for women 80 years. Unremarkable figures compared with those of the rest of the world. So why are there so many centenarians? Although there is no sure explanation, some observers think it is the Georgians' healthy diet, which is vast amounts of yogurt, fresh vegetables, and dairy products. Sounds great to me. Healthy mountain air, fresh spring water, beneficial effects of the superior local brandy, and the Georgian love of life. Bending the rules. In the past, Georgians always found that the communist system limited their natural exuberance and entrepreneurial spirit. They have a special term, blate, for getting around rules and regulations. The word can be roughly translated to mean obtaining benefits or favors through personal influence instead of by merit or through official channels. In its mildest form, it means simple patronage, and in its more extreme form, it means outright extortion or fraud. Because of this, Georgians have earned themselves a reputation for black market trading, especially in Russia. The spirit of blate has, unfortunately, manifested itself in a more ominous form since independence, with the rapid growth of criminal mafia-type organizations throughout Georgia. Where there's a will, there's a way, I suppose. Let's see. Nothing in the religion chapter, that's too bad. Really interesting. Oh, we're not going to go over the Georgian alphabet either. I'll skip that box too. Let's find some good boxes. Here we go. See, I told you. The watchtowers of Upper Svaneti, which there's a picture right here. In the remote mountain region of Upper Svaneti, many traditional peasant houses have an unusual feature: a 90-foot stone tower. The earliest towers date from the 12th century. Although built as a defensive structure that allowed the Svans to see their enemies approaching from a distance, the size of a tower also indicated the power and standing of a family within the community. Each tower traditionally had 4 floors, the first for storing fodder and livestock, the second for religious devotions, and the third and fourth for the family and garrison. The towers are remarkably sturdy and have withstood landslides and avalanches that have swept away many newer buildings. It is thought that they were so strong because egg yolk was used in the mortar. That's interesting. Abkhazian writing. Abkhazian literature came into being at the end of the 19th century. An Abkhazian alphabet was first created in 1862, and the first Abkhazian newspaper was printed in 1919. Dmitry Gulia was a major promoter of Abkhazian writing and culture and founded Abkhazian prose with his short story Under Alien Skies in 1919. Samson Chamba wrote in both Abkhazian and Russian, and his plays drew on themes from revolutionary history. Fazl Iskander, a contemporary writer from Sukhumi, writes in Russian and is distinguished for subtlety, humor, and philosophical character. His poetry collections and novella, Kozlatur's Constellation, have been widely read in Russian-speaking countries. If I remember, I'll link my video about Abkhazia up in the corner too. Hopefully I remember. Hope you're enjoying the page turning sounds. I know I am. Let's read about chess. Throughout the former Soviet Union, chess is a very popular pastime, and Georgia is no exception. The Georgians have been very successful in international competitions, and the women in particular have excelled in international chess. Oh dear. Nona Gaprindashvili was the women's world chess champion for 16 years, from 1962 to 1978. Another Georgian, Maya Chimberdanidze, who became the women's world champion at the age of 17, eventually ousted Gaprindashvili from her long reign. Chimberdanidze was women's world champion for 13 years, from 1978 to 1991. Gaprindashvili and Chimberdanidze have the distinction of being the only 2 women to hold the title of Grand Master in both women's and men's chess. Among the men, Tamaz Georgadze has performed well in international and Russian chess competitions and won the international title of Grand Master in 1977. Since the breakup of the Soviet Union, Georgia has fielded its own chess teams at international competitions. Yeah, there's just something about former Soviet states and chess hand in hand. Let's read about bath time. Tbilisi is famous for its hot sulfur baths. Rich in hydrogen sulfide, The waters have curative effects that have been appreciated by both locals and travelers through the centuries. The baths have been associated with Tbilisi throughout its history and are said to be the reason why King Vakhtang Gorgasali moved his capital here. In the 12th century, as many as 68 different baths drew upon the plentiful underground waters. There are many sulfur baths in Tbilisi, but the best known is the Herakli bath, situated underground and covered with a grand domed roof. Many Georgians go to the baths to relax and subject themselves to a rigorous body massage. This massage includes being laid on a stone slab, having their bodies slapped and pummeled, being rubbed with a horsehair mitten to remove dead skin cells, getting soaped, and finally being rinsed with a bucket of warm water. French author Alexandre Dumas in Adventures in Caucasia described the experience. Suddenly, when I least expected it, 2 attendants seized me, laid me out on a wooden bench, and began to crack every single joint in my body, one after the other. Although I felt no discomfort, I was convinced they were all dislocated, and half expected that at any moment these silent Persians would fold me up like a towel and pop me away in a cupboard. Then one of them held me still while the other positively danced up and down my whole body. He must have weighed 120 pounds or more, but he seemed as light as a butterfly. A great sense of freedom and well-being permeated me. All my tiredness had gone, and I felt strong enough to lift a mountain. Sounds pretty nice, actually. I wouldn't mind that. Tbilisoba. The festival of Tbilisi, Tbilisoba, occurs on the last Sunday in October to commemorate the founding of Tbilisi and all things Georgian. The festival, which is the largest annual celebration in Tbilisi, is marked with a street carnival and many of Georgia's famous song and dance ensembles put on traditional Georgian performances. The celebration is not complete without the traditional personification of Old Tbilisi, the roguish Kinto, clowning with a wineskin. The festival was suspended for a few years as a sign of protest and national mourning following the tragic killing of 20 demonstrators in Tbilisi by Soviet special forces on April 9th, 1989. We're almost done. Yeah, we're on the last chapter. Let's see if there's any boxes in this. There's one little one. Georgian supras. Supra, a traditional Georgian feast, is an important part of Georgian social culture. There are 2 types of supra: a festivity supra called kepi and a somber supra called kaleki, which is always held after burials. And that is the end. This stew looks really good. I would eat this. It looks yummy. Is there anything else? A map of Georgia. And if you can see, showing where Georgia is located in the world. It's very tiny on this map. So that is it for tonight. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked this kind of content where I go through and read all the little boxes, please consider subscribing because I do this kind of content all the time on my channel. I hope you found this video relaxing and educational, and I hope that you have a good night.